So the question was like, what do you do about eating when you're bored? And then the other topic I want to talk about kind of mesh together is triggered eating. So eating when you're bored is like staring at the fridge 20 times and you're like, something new is going to pop up. I don't know. I'm just bored. I don't know what to do about it. Triggered eating comes in a couple different definitions. One of which being like, say, you eat a type of food. Usually it's something sweet like candy or something like chips or something like that. And that food is a trigger food and it just makes you want to continue to need to eat more of that same food. The other type of triggered eating, more of what I'm going to talk about, sounds like I said trick-or-treating. Triggered eating is more of the topic I want to talk about, meaning like an occasion or something happened and then it triggers you to eat foods that maybe you wouldn't normally go eat if you were in a better place. So going to talk about that and kind of bring in the bored eating as well. So triggered eating, as far as that sense, a huge trigger for people is stress, especially now at work and just with the past few years and everything that's been going on and people trying to get back to normal. But like the amount of people that have told me like they have 12 to 18 hour work days and they can't stop to eat and all that, it's insane. It's just insane that is now our new normal. And it infuriates me that people expect that of their workers when if they can't eat or recover or sleep, how do they expect them to work? It's another tangent for another day. But anyway, that's where I'm going with this. So stress. Work stress it can be a trigger for people. Changes in their schedule can be a trigger for people. Even if you plan like your whole day perfectly of food, something just sets you off and then it all goes to shit. So the thing that we have to, with bored eating and triggered eating, we have to figure out what that occurrence is. With bored eating, you're bored, okay? And the simple answer that somebody might say was, well, just don't eat. But the problem with that is if something is so ingrained in your system as a habit or something that you've been doing for years and years and years, it's really hard. It's like an addiction. It's like people with drug addictions or alcohol addictions or whatever. It's very hard to untrain your body to do that. So the first thing we want to do is just recognize like what's kind of setting us off. So meaning is what is happening to then make me do something that I wouldn't normally do. So for example, one of my clients, he had mentioned that something happened at work or he's just really, really stressed and it's compounding and he found himself like going to get fast food and he was eating it and he's like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even want this. And he threw it out and he texted me. He's like, hey, this just happened, blah, blah, blah. And we talked about it. And he's like, I don't even know why I did that. I'm like, well, this is what you've been doing for years. That's all you know. And it's like the same thing with people who, gained a lot of weight and they wanted to be gone in a month. And it's like, well, it took you years to do this. It's not going to be undone in a minute. So going back to what he was saying, he's like, okay, I don't know what I did. I feel really bad about it. I'm like, don't feel bad. We had to talk about it and figure out, okay, I gave him a couple scenarios. Like, this is what we need to do. Whenever you have something like this, we have to kind of pull like a bait and switch. So meaning like so for the people that just say, oh, just don't eat then. If you get stressed out, just deal with it, don't eat. But the problem is if you remove something like that habit or the bored eating, or you remove it and you don't fill it with something else, something just as negative is going to sneak into that void anyway, and you're going to replace it with something else that's still not productive. So you have to kind of take out that, whatever happens when you get triggered, okay, and you're like, I got to go eat fast food or I got to go eat something unhealthy. Well, you have to create a new habit to put in place. So we talked about it. I gave him a couple scenarios and I gave him some time and I'm like, figure out take some of these suggestions and see what might work for you. So I talked to him a couple days later to see how he was doing. And he's like, yeah, he figured out just going for a walk worked wonders for him. So, and that was great because he used the suggestion of removing yourself from the situation. Like, okay, this is a stressful situation that I'm in. I feel anxious. I feel like I'm going to pop off or whatever. And he left and he went for a walk. And it's a really good way to just get some fresh air, let your body and mind chill the fuck out for a little bit and get your mind right so then you can go back into the situation you were in more controlled and not feeling out of control to where you have to rely on something else to make you feel better. And again, easier said than done, but doing something simple like that, and it's going to take a couple times for you to make this replacement. And that's totally normal. Again, it's a habit. Depending on how deeply ingrained it is in you, it's going to take a while to pry it out. But you could do anything like reading, drawing, journaling. You could do, crochet. That was a cool thing for people our age for a little while. I tried it, not so good at it. My friend made a scarf. I started making a scarf and I quit, so it was a pot holder instead. But anything like that, or even like listen to a podcast for a couple minutes, or like your favorite comedian or something, just to take your mind off of whatever is triggering you. And after so many times, you might not even know what the trigger is right now, but after so many times of realizing like, oh wait, I'm doing something I'm not normally trying not to do, what happened beforehand? And you kind of take a step back and realize it, and check the patterns and realize the patterns that are setting you off, and that's how you can build on that. And like I said, it might take a couple times for you to be like, okay, I tried to break the habit this time, I couldn't, but why couldn't I? It's a lot of reflection. It's a lot of, even journaling, just to write down habits of like, this only happens on Wednesdays when my schedule is different, or this only happens on this such a day when this person is around, or whatever, because people can be triggers too.
Amen.
So just taking notes of that kind of stuff, so you can kind of preemptively, like, I know it's going to happen, okay, and I'm prepared for it, and I'm going to do this instead. So you become a lot more self-aware, and you don't let the trigger control you anymore. You kind of take it as a, hey, I see you coming, but I'm going to beat you this time, and I'm going to win. So it's a lot different as far as letting the food or letting the trigger control you, where you're kind of stepping back, taking control of it, and now I get to decide what I do. And it might sound simpler, it might sound kind of weird, but it just, until you are in that kind of position, you don't realize how much control that stuff has over you, and how empowering it is to take that control back and be like, all right, I don't have to stress now about being stressed or about this thing happening, because I know what I can do instead, and I'm going to work on it, I'm going to get better at it. And a lot of times too is that will then take that weight off of you, then other things get easier. Like you're not, like you could be more productive at work, and you can sleep easier, and just all this stuff adds up that has nothing to do with food, but like all the other stuff kind of comes into play, and it's just like a weight off your shoulders. And as far as like the bored eating, same type of thing. So if you're bored, you're like, I don't know what to do, and you're just kind of like walking around your house and looking in the fridge, have something on hand to do. Oh, when I'm looking at the fridge, now's the time I'm going to go garden, and I'm going to start a new hobby. Like I'm going to, or like Eddie, coin collecting, or whatever. Okay, as long as it takes your mind off of it until that urge to eat. And if you're hungry, eat. That's different. But a lot of times people will eat or stress eat out of the trigger or boredom versus actually being hungry. And they're like, I'm not even hungry. Why am I eating this? So yeah, if you're bored, you find yourself in the fridge, go do something else. Create a hobby. Watch your favorite comedian or a show for 5 minutes or whatever. And it might take you a little while to figure out which activity works best for you. It's got to be something you genuinely enjoy and that can calm your mind and take you away from that situation and let you calm down a little bit.
And also maybe even helping to remove some of those triggers away from you too. So if you know chocolate is a trigger for you, but you have M&Ms easy to grab right there, you got to get this shit out.
Yeah, and like with trigger food, it's like if you know, and it's not like you can't have these foods, but if you know that there is a specific food that either triggers you to eat more of it or triggers something else, you just can't have it in the house. And that's not saying it's a bad food you can't eat. It's just, it's not the right food for you to have on hand. If you go out to dinner and have it then. You don't have an unlimited supply in your face. You got to pay for that when you go. So that'll kind of deter you from overeating it. You know what I mean? But if you have something you know is like just that thing that you can't stop eating, you just don't have it in your house. Or find something that's similar, but that's better for you or whatever, that doesn't trigger you the same way. And you could have that in the house instead. Or just make that bait and switch with that type of thing too. Because if you don't have it in the house, you can't eat it.
Like when I first started powerlifting years ago, like I'm a pasta girl. Like I can, if I knew I wouldn't be 812 pounds, I could eat pasta all day, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I'll be okay with it. So that's my thing. But then when I stepped on scale, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm 198. I'm 5'2" for people who don't know me. I'm pretty thick. Like these thighs are thick. But you were like, you look taller on TV. As long as I look 5'6", we can do that. But pasta was my thing. So when I knew I had to lose weight, I need to find something that I can eat that's going to take away my cravings, and that's when I found spaghetti squash. And then one of my good friends taught me how to make my own marinara sauce because I love marinara sauce. I probably can count on one hand how many times I actually had jarred marinara because it's so much easier to make. It took away my craving, my trigger for pasta. Like I didn't care for gluten or whatever, because now my trigger, I can eat a crap ton of spaghetti squash and all the pasta that I want to is still have my cheat, and I'm good. I'm good. So the whole little beta switch.
Yeah, and you can use that for a lot of things, not just food. There are special things, but people use it in a lot of different professions and stuff like that. So just something simple to think about. Like, you're not stuck with whatever it is. Like, you got to work at it a little bit, but it just helps so much. A lot.
Again, you have to work. It's not just going to be given to you.
Yeah. You got to kind of try a little bit, but it gets easier. It's always hard in the beginning. That's what she said. It gets easier as you go. It always gets a little bit easier as you do it a couple times, and that's your new habit. And then you won't, like you said, like once you're eating, and that's one of the biggest things. This is totally not off topic, but kind of off topic. When we go through like the reset you just did, like when you change your palate, you crave different things for different reasons, and you're not like, I forgot, I posted something about like, it was a little while ago, about how apples, and like how if your body's so used to eating, sweet stuff all the time, your sensitivity to how sweet an apple is just shot. So you don't like fruit as much. But when you stop eating that stuff for a couple of days, the fruit tastes sweet again, and you don't crave the other stuff as much because it's like overly sweet, and your body's craving better foods now because you've cleansed your palate and all that kind of stuff. So it's super cool, and I'm like super dork with it, but it all makes sense, and if you let your body do what it's supposed to, it will help you out versus work against you.
That is so true, though, because I think one of the other big things, and then we'll bring on Marissa, was that you said that you're trying to break habits that you've been doing 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line and expecting to get rid of that habit in 1 week.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
When does that ever work?
If that was the case, then everybody would be doing it. Everybody be happy.
That's it. Bam.